Hey guys, welcome to episode 3 of Toward the Games, Brisbane 2032, as we take a look at everything as we move closer to these great games, just under 4,000 days from now.
Wow.
Yep.
Gee, the countdown.
The countdown. Really starting to kick in, isn't it? I'm David Luttsy Luttrell. I do Nova Radio in Brisbane. Chris Jones is the editor of the Courier Mail. Hey Chris, how are you?
Oh, I'm great, Luttsy, and I see you've been out to Boonah. You've got your souvenir I'd rather be at Boonah cap there.
Yes, there's two elements I've brought with me today, Chris. It was the 500k road relay, which was the relay I took part in before I ever met you. The other relay, of course, the Sydney relay where I met you. But This was a running race back in my athletic days, where teams of 20 would start from Mount Gravatt and make their way to Boonah for night one, where we'd sleep in the grandstand, our team, the run-in, a running store at Everton Park. We'd sleep in the grandstand, freezing, and then get up the next morning and keep running our 4 to 7k legs before you tap on to the next person. Yeah. Ipswich Toowoomba for night 2. Yes. And then finish up in Ipswich on the Sunday. Exhausting. Wow. Yeah, quite an event. Raising money for...
Do you think we should lobby to get that into the Brisbane 2032 Olympics as the local sport?
It'd be a pretty cool spectator sport. And I'd like
because there's nothing better than watching people run 4Ks and then tap someone
else,
and someone else runs 4Ks and onwards.
And I think maybe you do it, but you've got to have a whole cross section of Brisbane in your team, so you can have you can have 2 elite runners, but then you've also got to have 2 people of a certain age.
Or you get the athletics team and you say you can have a couple of people from the track,
yes,
but a couple of people from the field events putters as well.
Getting the shot putters involved in some bitumen running, terrific stuff. So that was that. That's the
now while we were talking about Boonah, of course, if you go back to episode 1, it's because Boonah and Beaudesert, I've since discovered, are close to Wyaralong Dam, which is the site of the rowing.
Yes.
In 2032, in just under 4,000 days' time.
Are we still calling them clusters? I don't think the word cluster is as cool as it used to be since COVID. I don't like the terms, the Boondall cluster was what we spoke about with Sally Ann Atkinson last week. I think cluster is still the term though, isn't it? Have you heard the word cluster being thrown around as a group of venues?
Yes. Well, they do. They talk about it. Not so much as... Yeah, it has ruined the word.
I don't think we can use cluster.
By COVID.
Yeah, cluster's not a cool word anymore.
Anyway, I'm looking forward to the Boonah-Beaudesert cluster.
Yeah. It's only one sport, I think, isn't it? Are they only getting one sport? The rowing?
Rowing.
Yeah. Not much of a cluster, really.
And the 3-day ultra marathon run with the
of course. The 500k road relay through Boonah, Ipswich and Toowoomba. Look, it's been a couple of weeks since we last our episode 2. Big thanks again to Sally Ann Atkinson for... if you haven't had a listen, obviously our previous podcasts are still up. You can follow that, obviously, as you are with this one.
Wasn't it great to have Sally Ann on? She's
brilliant.
She's still got it, hasn't she? I think she said she's 90 at the day of the opening ceremony, so she'd be
90,
79 now.
Yeah, she is. She's 79.
Sprightly. Really appreciate it. I was listening back. I thought that we better get more than one listener to the podcast, so I got on my favourite podcast app.
I subscribed as well.
And had a listen back to the Sally Ann episode. She said something that was quite amusing that we both missed in the moment.
Yeah.
She said when she was talking to Prince Philip about the equestrian.
Yes.
And there was some issues with quarantine and so on. She said that Prince Philip told her to just forget the damn horses.
I can hear Prince Philip saying that. Only through watching The Crown.
So my mind instantly went to equestrian without the horses.
Well, that could be interesting.
Like a Monty Python.
And not impossible.
You get the guys with the clip, clop.
100%. Just running along next to him. And the dressage would be great. Python have done it. And it was hilarious. Equestrian without horses. It certainly throws Victoria Park in a different... do we need that much land if there's no horses involved?
Well, I think you could do the dressage would be fine.
Yeah.
Show jumping.
Cross country. Cross country could be, difficult
anyway,
to say the least. But yeah,
big ideas for the 92 games.
Prince Phil, we miss him. Now, there's been a bit happen the last couple of weeks. We've had a few advancements as far as I think one of the great headlines I've seen in recent times. Your headline at the Courier Mail, the winner is me, when Annastacia Palaszczuk giving herself a top job with the state government.
Yes, we now have
She's the Olympic
Minister for the Brisbane Olympics.
Yep.
Who also happens to be the Premier, as you say, Annastacia Palaszczuk. Look, I think that's a good move because, what it does is it puts the decision-making right at the centre of government.
Yeah.
And so it's, far better to have the Premier than some junior minister taking on that responsibility. I noticed he's taken to wearing the Olympic rings as a little badge.
Who has?
The Premier.
Really? I have not noticed that.
She's walking around with a little Olympic. So I think she might also be running for the president of the International Olympic Committee at some point in the future.
She sees that in her future somewhere. So what does that mean as far as... does that put her in any sort of shape for the president's role as part of that organising committee? I mean... what does that position mean? What has she given herself there?
Well, she won't be that. And we should talk about this. So there has been quite an advance. We spoke in episode 1 about the BOCOG, the makeup of the BOCOG, which they need to put legislation through Parliament in the next few weeks by the end of the year.
Yeah.
To establish the BOCOG. Now, the BOCOG will have a 22-member board. You imagine those meetings, 22 different ideas around the board, table.
They're coming at it. They'll be coming at it from all. I guess what you want they're coming at it from a million different angles, but it certainly will be, won't it?
Well, there's 7 of the 22. There's 7 sort of AOC president of Paralympics, all that sort of stuff. Then you've got the Lord Mayor and a Lord Mayor's nominee. So there's another 2. That's 9.
Probably one of us because he's on episode 4.
We have looked. Yes, that's coming up.
I've been told by our series of producers that we have working feverishly behind the scenes that the Shrindog.
It's going to be a half-an-hour job interview as Luttsy desperately tries to become the Lord Mayor's nominee.
I'm going to use the word attaché. I think Ted O'Brien's already taken the federal attaché position.
He's a special envoy.
Special envoy, is it?
Attaché is better.
Attaché is good, isn't it? It's got one of those little. I think attaché has one of those little things above an E somewhere, doesn't it? You should know. You're the editor of a newspaper.
A little accent.
Accent. That's it. Yeah, these are all terms I'm interested in. Is all I'm saying.
That'll give you 2 lines on your LinkedIn, Luttsy. Looking forward to that. So the Lord Mayor gets himself and a nominee, and then there's the Premier gets to pick 4, including it mandates that one of them needs to be a woman, and the Prime Minister gets to pick 4, and one of them needs to be a woman.
So is that locked in stone? Because the term 50-50 keeps getting bandied between federal.
That's the 50-50 now. Those of you playing at home doing your maths, you see hang on, I've got to do the maths. All right.
When you're not a maths guy, you're a journalist.
5 short.
Yeah, right.
5 short.
Yes.
Now, this is where the controversy's been. So, the what happens when they do this, the legislation? They send out a draft bill, and they send out a draft bill to all the stakeholders. They say, including the federal government, the council, so on. That this is going to be state government legislation. In that legislation, it said that the minister gets to pick the remaining 5.
Right.
Now, of course, having named herself minister, that would have left Premier Annastacia Palaszczuk with 9 picks of the 22, and there was some concerns raised very publicly in the August Journal, the Courier Mail, by the Prime Minister's special envoy Ted O'Brien /
attaché Ted O'Brien.
Yes.
So Ted was sort of.
Now he said, "Look, this is not acceptable." He said this gives the Premier way too much power over this committee. And and it goes against everything. And he said this is throwing the entire deal,
worth a couple of dollars,
11 billion or so. No biggie.
It's not small fry we're talking
here.
No biggie. Yep.
And then instantly what happened was everyone freaked out because what the IOC is looking for, what they've seen so far, is beautiful bipartisan support across jurisdictions with everyone pulling in the same direction behind this bid. And so everyone freaked out because Ted had blown the whistle on this thing.
Yes.
Now, I think what they've done is, as the Lord Mayor says, they've since ironed out some kinks, in inverted commas, in that legislation.
Right.
And what they've decided is that the remaining 5 will no longer be appointed by the minister. They will be independent directors, jointly appointed by everyone.
Right. Okay.
Including the podcast, we get a say.
Surely we're in that somewhere. Okay, no, this is making sense.
And a global search firm will be engaged to find these 5 independent directors. And of those 5 independent directors, one will then be named the president.
So one of that 5 will definitely be the president. Is that what you're telling me?
And I think the idea is because otherwise they're potentially pulling the president from some of these appointments by the premier or the prime minister,
So
which
it's
of course
either
will
federal
be
or state
political
biased.
appointments or whatever. Yeah, exactly. And
Okay.
so it's good news in that I think what Ted's done here is done the whole Olympics, a service.
Yep.
By calling this out,
Expediting it.
and making sure that it's out there in the public,
Nice work,
and it's
Ted.
going to be resolved. So yeah, high five to Ted, who was very keen. He's been listening to the podcast actually.
Does he listen?
He was texting me the other day saying, "I love the podcast, boys. Unfortunately, since I said this, I've been gagged, so I can't come on."
That's the biggest problem with this podcast. Too many people can't speak at the moment.
Yes.
But that time will come.
Yes.
We're still talking with all the major players, including Ted O'Brien, who will speak when he can.
Yes, and I think John Coates as well.
Will speak when he can.
Yeah, I saw he did the National Press Club address last week, which surprises me that he said no so far to the podcast. But
Yeah,
yes,
why
to
is he
the
doing that?
National Press Club.
Yeah, he's probably picked up a couple of K prize money. Oh, like just to...
You
he's
get
getting-
it all
we
the
can't
time.
afford to... Yeah, I do. I do everything. This is the only thing I do for free, basically. Because it's just it's a passion project for me, Chris. But yeah, but we
Probably
can't
what Posey thought
afford to pay people to come on the podcast. But
No, so when the Lord Mayor appears next episode,
Pro bono?
yeah, rest assured he has some
I've got some twisties actually that got dropped off yesterday, so I'm going
good.
to offer him some twisties.
There's some minties there in front of you.
There's 3
Studio,
minties
so-
left,
okay,
but they'll be
perfect.
gone by next week. But that's good. Okay, well, that sorts that out. Sally Ann's comments about the People's Games is something I want to try and get to as well today, because we were joking about it. I think episode 2, Sally Ann was pretty forthright in what she said last time we spoke about the games having to be around the people and about enriching the lives of the people of Brisbane. Yeah, I thought Sally Ann was interesting last week.
Well,
That was
she
great.
was, and I thought it was interesting how she went straight to talking about the people, which which we spent a lot of time thinking about the Olympics and about infrastructure. What's the Gabba going to look like?
Yeah.
and where's the swimming going to be? And how exciting is the Boonah-Beaudesert clusters?
Cluster.
How are they going to go? And what we forget is when you actually go to the events, we spent a lot of time talking about Expo with Sally Ann.
Yeah.
And she honed straight in on this, which is that nobody, when they're thinking back to the World Expo in 88 in Brisbane, which we do often, Luttsy,
Yes.
as people who lived in Brisbane in 1988, it's one of our go-to dinner party conversations.
Of course.
We don't walk around saying, gee, how amazing was the structure of the New Zealand pavilion, do we?
The architecture.
Or I really liked the second sail. I thought
Yeah.
that was, of all the
Sail
sails, that was certainly the best one. The engineering that went into
Yeah.
it was extraordinary.
But that's
you go
right.
straight to, gee, I love doing the chicken dance at the thing, or in our case, how inspired we both were by the Channel
10/X pavilion. I feel like it was Channel O or X at one point.
Yes, pavilion, which where you got to watch the newsreaders, and I got my young reporter pass.
Yeah, I didn't get that. Did that cost money? Dad probably didn't pay for
I
that.
don't think it was free.
Okay, that's why I didn't get one. Dad had just sent me off every night with about 40 cents, which got me an ice cream, and that was about it.
Happy birthday to your dad too.
Yeah, recently. Thank you for that.
Is Dad listening to the podcast?
I don't think he knows how to, but I'll steal his phone and get a subscription out of him anyway, so we get another number and press
3.
5 stars. I did that on Mum last week.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, so
Has
that's
she
good.
listened?
No, I don't think she has. But
My mum had a
No,
listen.
she did. Actually, she did listen.
Oh,
She
yeah?
listened
What
to Sally
feedback?
Ann for about 20 minutes the other
Any
down at
feedback?
She liked it. Your mum, jury's out, fair to say?
Yeah, Mum texted and said, "Look, I listened. I smiled a fair bit. Didn't laugh out loud."
Well, I'll take that. It's not that negative.
I just said, "Have you subscribed?"
Yeah. I don't care. Have you subscribed and press 5 stars? 5 stars is important.
Hey, the other we should mention, this is a good opportunity actually. I did put up my young reporter card on our Instagram,
Yes. Feedback.
which is @toward the games.
Yes, okay. Yep.
So get on if you've got Instagram, which Sally Ann does, so I assume everyone does.
Yep.
@toward the games is our Instagram page. Yeah, lots of good feedback on that post. I think you liked it.
Now, did I post a photo of you at the 2000 torch relay? That I think you might have sent this to me a long time ago. I have to scrounge that up. It's you looking Very official with your accreditation around your neck. I'm going to
really?
put that up. This will be.
Oh,
it'll
okay.
be up by the time you hear this. I go to Toward the Games, Toward the Games, and the photo of Chris Jones, circa 2000.
That's an accompanying piece
Back
to
when
the
he was
picture
out.
there of you. Of you holding the
torch.
doing the torch, a bit of air guitar on the torch,
Doing the
on the
Akadaka
Instagram.
kick on the torch. But look, you mentioned South Bank very briefly in World Expo. We'll have a quick break and come back. I want to talk about South Bank Mark II, 2.0 if you like, and the possibility that our own Lord Mayor, Adrian Schrinner, has projected perhaps the new space on the banks of the Brisbane River to create some sort of legacy, an Olympic legacy, for South Bank and for Brisbane moving forward. So we'll come back and talk about that in a moment. Episode 3, Toward the Games. Thanks for joining. I'm Luttsy. Chris Jones is with me. And I was just speaking before our brief break then about, a new South Bank? What are you talking about? Where? How's that possible? What's happening?
Well,
and we will speak about this hopefully next episode with the Lord Mayor.
We will, because it's
Adrian
his
Schrinner.
idea. So this is what the council's thinking is, what can the legacy in terms of public infrastructure be of the games, just like South Bank itself was, the legacy of Expo 88. And what they've done is they've found this site. It's on Montague Road as you're driving, I suppose, off the go-between. If you're going to West End.
Hard
turn
right
right.
off the go-between,
Yes.
yep.
You're driving towards Davies Park.
Yep.
It's in there on your right.
Okay.
You see, if you sort of look out the window, what you see is a very bizarre sort of Charlie and the Chocolate Factory style factory that you wouldn't expect to be there. And it's the Visi site. And next door is a cement factory as well.
What's physio? Plastic?
Plastic. Oh, glass.
Glass.
They actually make the glass for Forex.
Really? Yeah, that's
Just-
where I've seen it.
Yeah.
On the edge of a Forex.
They
Stubby
do.
every time I have
They
one.
do. I wonder
Okay.
if they probably put it on a raft and push it across the river from there. And
Oh, I found a great photo of that during the floods the other day. We might put that up. It's not really Olympic related, but transferring Forex on a raft across the floods in.
that would fit, because this
74.
podcast has turned out to not be Olympics
It's
related.
mostly just a nostalgic walk down memory lane, isn't it? But it's early days.
Okay, well, let's put that up. So to the Visi site,
Right, so creating what?
it's 7 hectares. So
Which is
it's
what?
something like 2.5 times the size of Roma Street Parkland.
Right.
If you can
Okay.
picture how big that is,
So not as big as South Bank.
Not as big as South Bank, not far off when you look at it
Yeah.
on a map. It's a huge site. It's right on the river as well. Currently, as I say, just a factory. So what the council wants to do is buy that site off Visi and the cement factory, whatever,
Yep.
and build a beautiful parkland there post the games, and in the meantime use it as the site of the International Broadcast Centre.
Right.
Which, where all the TV stations and so on do
Yeah, I
their
guess
work.
Joe Public probably never gets to access that, but I know in 2000 I worked out of the International Broadcast Centre in Sydney, which was in the shadows of the Olympic Stadium. Literally, like I watched Kathy Freeman's race on a screen, being able to hear the cheers from inside the stadium. That's how close I was without actually being in the stadium when Kathy won in 2000. But it was a remarkable thing. It's from memory, NBC, the massive American rights broadcaster for the games, had roughly half the space of the IBC, which I think was roughly the size of about a football field and a half. That was just NBC, their Olympic coverage. And the other half was basically every national rights broadcaster. So you'd literally be able to walk around door to door, because I was doing very little else other than just bludging working for 4BC and 2UE Radio. We had a tiny little studio as part of the IBC. But you'd walk around door to door, you'd walk through a doorway and it'd be Brazilian television doing live broadcast. You'd walk out of that doorway and the next one it's Portuguese television, the next one's Russian television. And it was
And you just walked around opening doors.
I was literally just walking around opening doors, walking onto TV
That was
sets.
that's just talking about memories. That's your memories of Sydney 2000.
That's what I did.
Opening doors.
I had an awkward moment when I was working with Ray Hadley, who's an animated character. He was my boss at the time. Was him and Alan Jones. And Hadley sort of put a rocket up us one day saying, you're not here for a holiday, you bunch. You get, pull your finger out. It's time to start doing some work. And he's sitting next to the doorway to our office. There was a knock on the door. He opened the door and there was a little Brazilian guy from Brazilian television who I'd swapped a T-shirt with the day before. And he went to Ray Hadley, "Hello, is Mr. David here?" I slid under the desk. I couldn't have gone any deeper under the desk. I thought Hadley was going to murder the poor guy. He didn't. He just slammed the door in his face, and that was it. But that was the International Broadcast Centre. And I touched on it last week with Sally Ann very briefly about the possibility. I know you're saying it's going to become gardens and things post-games, but geez, I'd love for that site to potentially be a hybrid site instead of just one big brick convention centre style thing where we house our international media. Like, why can't that be a bit of a collaborative sort of World Expo kind of vibe going on where the world's media can access all the great things that Australia has to offer during the games as well? You know what I mean?
Well, it sounds like you're pitching to me, and
I'm pitching to. I'm looking at you, but I'm pitching to all these important people, all these important attaches that are listening right now. Ted, Adrian.
No, it's a good idea.
John.
And the idea though would be, I like it though. The idea of the IBC would be that it's a temporary building, just like,
of course,
you pull it apart at the end, and and then you turn it back into whatever it is, parklands and coffee shops and overpriced ice cream outlets. I'd say. Yeah,
right. Yeah, I see what you.
And then it's almost joined up there as well. You've then only got the last site is the Parmalat site, before you then hit Goma and turn around the corner into South Bank.
Yeah.
I know you're a Northside boy, so you've got no idea what I'm talking about.
I know Goma, so Parmalat is kind of on the corner of the river, just past Goma, is it?
Yeah, that's true.
The last of those factories down there.
That's true.
So what
so then you would end up with South Bank that leads into Art Gallery, Goma, so on, around the corner.
Yep.
And you get that whole section there. So that is something that would definitely change Brisbane. And to talk about, as we do, we talk about legacy of the games. That would be something that that we'd look back on and say, wow, wasn't that a great time? And how good are those buildings?
And you look at the bid video, which we both have, and maybe I don't know whether we can put that up in our socials. Can we do that? Or are we allowed to do that? Just to give people an idea of what got us across the line.
Beg for forgiveness.
Yeah, you're right. Ask later.
Yeah.
The only reason I'm saying that is because I think you were the first person to sort of suggest to me that even though the basis of the bid was existing infrastructure, that we're going to see some new projects sort of starting that perhaps weren't in that initial bid. This sort of talk being some of those. And I'm not concerned at that. As long as it's not a massive blowout cost-wise and we can somehow do that, I'm pretty excited by the fact that we're still thinking it's not just locked in. We're 11 years out and we've already locked in every single piece of the puzzle, if you know what I mean. I mean, things are going to change and we're going to be able to change with it. I mean, I think what's going to happen is we're going to get to Paris in 3 years and go, oh, geez, they've just done all that. Are we still going to be the future? And then you got LA in another 7 years, and the same sort of we're going to have to evolve a lot over the next 11 years.
And you also want to be building facilities that are then able to be reused.
Yes.
But believe it or not, we seem to be in this permanent Olympiad at the moment with the Beijing Winter Games now something like
how crazy
80 days away, or it's in January or February.
Our athletes are barely out of quarantine from the Summer Olympics, and we're a matter of months away from the Winter Olympics.
Yeah, so all of those who compete in both the summer and winter games.
Jana Pittman.
It's a quick turnaround.
And she's filming SAS as well. She's very busy.
Very busy.
Yeah, but you're right.
But so Beijing, they're using some of the facilities from their summer games for the winter games. The National Indoor Stadium, which they call the Fan. It was gymnastics, handball, trampolining. It's going to be used for ice hockey. The Olympic Stadium itself will be the opening and closing ceremonies of the Winter Games.
The bird cage?
Yeah, was that bird? No, I think that's probably more bird nest.
The crow's nest?
It was a nest. You've already got your mind on the on your sneaky trip to Melbourne.
It was the bird. I'm sure it was the bird's nest. The bird's nest. The bird's nest. That's it. Yeah, not the bird cage.
And the water cube. Do you remember the water cube? It was designed by Australians where the swimming was.
Yep.
It's going to actually be used for my favourite winter Olympic sport, curling.
I was going to say speed skating. No, curling.
Curling.
In that massive. Does it need something that big? It was an incredible.
I don't know a lot about curling. I do enjoy watching it.
It is. It's a strange sport, but that was an impressive building actually. The Cube. Had that LED
that's
sort of situation.
And I think that's the point, as you're saying. Yes, these are just being reused for more sports, but they're being used. That's now 13, 14 years on.
Yeah.
They're now being repurposed into something else. And I think that's the other thing about Brisbane. Like, let's not lock ourselves in now. Let's look for the opportunities down the track for things that we can really build that will serve this city and this state well into the future.
Yeah. The other one is I presume, and I think Tokyo is the first time speaking to people that were in the village there about, walls that can be knocked out of some apartments. So we're not just stuck with a bunch of really small, I'm not sure the legacy of the Commonwealth Games village.
Oh, yeah, you go down
off Smith Street. I'm not sure that's going to be one that we're going to go, oh, that was a masterstroke. You know what I mean?
No, I don't think that I don't think the design of that worked well at the time, let alone in.
No, but I mean, name an Olympic village where you have gone. Ooh, they really nailed that, didn't they? So someone's got a chance to create something up at North Shore.
That's right, where you get to live in a high rise with some small apartments and a massive canteen.
And a yellow balcony. For some reason, a yellow balcony always. But
no, that is a good point, because you look at that whole Hamilton area again, and it's growing so quickly.
Yes.
And will be by 2032. Who knows what that place might be in 2032? Let alone a couple of years after that, as we can repurpose those facilities.
We'll have another quick break, and there's another committee we're going to talk about as well.
Because there's nothing more exciting on a podcast than committee chat. Hashtag
it's a cluster of committee chats. Yeah, close to wrapping up things, guys, for episode 3 of Toward the Games, Brisbane 2032.
It's felt a bit like a laundry list today, hasn't it, of things we've had to get through. This is the point, though. Sally Ann last week was saying, what are you boys going to talk about for the next 11 years?
Yep.
And you said, well, let's get her on every couple of weeks, which not a bad idea. But I said, no, we have plenty of stuff to talk about. Here we are.
Housekeeping.
It's just there's so much going on already.
There is.
I've got two very small pages of notes.
I've got one bigger page, but my writing's a lot bigger than yours, so probably less substance, but still several key words and timing things here. But tell us about this other...
It's incredible we don't charge for this.
I know, right? Tell us about this this other group that have been put together.
Well, so this is the IOC.
And what their job is.
This is the IOC sort of oversight body. It's called the Brisbane 2032 Coordination Commission.
So they're making sure we don't stuff it up.
The B2032CC is the acronym.
But what's the acronym though? That's I'm not comfortable with that. So I'm not comfortable saying that on this podcast moving forward. They've got to come up with something better.
It compares well to BOCOG. We've got to come up with a better BOCOG.
Yeah, but at least BOCOG's got vowels. You can't have a BOCOG. It's not even an acronym, I'm not sure. It is, but I mean, Anyway, so they're making sure we don't sort of stuff things up. Is that right?
Hey, I'm actually looking for the vowel, but yeah, you're right. No, they are. And now the person who is in charge, there's 12 members of this. 8 of them are women, which is a great thing, and probably something that those making the appointments to the BOCOG should think about. Let's go for majority women. Why not? It's going to be led by Kirsty Coventry. Do you remember Kirsty Coventry?
Yeah, swimmer, Zimbabwean
swimmer. She made her debut in Sydney. And so for her, it's this beautiful symmetry of my first Olympics was in Sydney. And she talks about she was a swimmer, so they usually say, don't come to the opening ceremony. But she said, no, I'm going to the opening ceremony. It's my Olympics.
Yeah.
And so she talks about the moment she was standing. She actually got to go into the stadium, unlike you, Luttsy.
Yes.
And
I went to the opening ceremony in Sydney. I just didn't see Kathy.
I didn't see her run.
Sorry.
Oh, so you were there. Yeah, okay.
I did.
Well, you were there with Kirsty.
I snuck in. Actually, it's a story for another podcast. It's a great story, how I snuck in. Well, I can tell it quickly. It's like 30 seconds.
Well, there's no time limit on podcasts.
No, I finished off on the torch relay because I did the final run into the torch relay, commentating for 2UE.
Oh, you don't remember that?
And got off the back of the Winnebago, and the federal police are with us. Thought, okay, let's run into the stadium. So I just followed the federal police, and I literally just followed. And there was a doorway with a volunteer sitting there, and I thought I've got to get through that. That's how I get into the stadium, and I just with purpose, walked up and said, "It's been one of those days," and and the door flew open. I went in, and then I'm in a staircase. I will come out of the staircase through another door. I'm standing with the people holding the Olympic flag that never touches the ground. I'm literally burst the door open. I'm in the bowels of the Olympic Stadium.
Like the former Olympians?
You know when they get the big white flag and they march, sort of half march a bit, and there's some former Olympians that are holding it.
Yeah.
I'm standing with them against a wall, and and then I look up and I can reach, and I can see how I can reach a bar and hoik myself up into the grandstand.
Yeah.
You know how it sort of runs down on an angle where the races are in each corner of the stadium. I do that. I get myself and I pull myself up, and there happens to be a spare seat. Just plonk myself in there and sit there for the opening ceremony. True story.
That is a good story.
That's a
It would have been pretty awkward if you found yourself Mr. Bean style walking out holding onto one corner of the flag.
I could have easily been
former
there.
Olympian. Who's this ranger?
Or I burst through the door and knock the flag people over, and the flag hits the ground, which I think would be some sort of bad luck in Olympic. It never touches the ground.
So you're the reason that Sydney was the best Olympics ever?
Because I didn't. The flag didn't touch the ground. I didn't knock over someone. But Kirsty was there.
Kirsty was there. She says, she talks about how wonderful it was to see and inspiring it was to see Kathy. She talks about actually Susie O'Neill was her idol, and she talks about being able to. She still remembers the moment she got to swim in the lane next to her in the warm up pool.
Did she say that?
You'll
have to mention that because I do, for those that don't know that are listening globally right now, I do a radio show Monday to Friday with the great Susie O'Neill. Wow, that's interesting.
You forget what a legend Susie was, don't you?
She sits, I don't want to put any pressure on you, but she sits exactly where you're sitting now, this far away from me every day. So you're sitting in Susie O'Neill's seat right now. And no doubt in the times to come, she'll say, I'm sitting in Chris Jones's seat. Do you reckon that'll ever happen? Probably not.
Probably not.
So
no, she was a great. So Kirsty Coventry. So she's going to be leading this group, and they just give the oversight. And I think this is the sort of moment for her to become, I think there's a chance she could be the next IOC boss. Is what I'm trying to say.
Kirsty Coventry.
Because what will happen here is she's got 11 years of she's already the sports minister in her home country of Zimbabwe.
Oh, is she? She
is, on all sorts of IOC things. She's now essentially the body that is looking after, that is giving the oversight. It's exactly what John Coates did for Tokyo. He was leading the coordination commission for Tokyo. So it's a very important job. And in 11 years' time, she will be sort of late 40s, maybe 50, and right in the slot. I would say if she plays the cards right to be the next IOC boss. I know that these podcasts will live forever, so I think. In 2033, we can look back, and you heard it here first.
Put a marker on that. We're going to start doing prediction markers so we can go back and find them quickly over the years that come. But that committee is obviously hand-picked by the big man, the boss.
Yes,
so why would he put someone like... He's not going to put someone in that position that he doesn't see as having future...
And
role.
John Coates, she counts John Coates as one of her close mentors as well. So, there's a lot of beautiful symmetries here with Sydney. How good was the swimming in Sydney?
It was amazing. The stadium was amazing. Still holds up too.
The stadium?
Well, what do you call it? The arena, whatever the hell it was.
Yes.
The area.
It's interesting how your memories...
I never got to the swimming in Sydney. I watched it on a monitor.
You've made a liar of me because as soon as I say how good was the swimming in Sydney, you've gone, the building was great.
Oh, yeah. Sorry. I didn't see the swimming.
You haven't gone.
I was just looking at the
Thorpe or the 4x100 or Susie.
The cement pylons.
Madam Butterfly. You're just...
just rubbing the cement walls. That was my highlight in Sydney.
It was quite the construction.
What swimming?
Remember, my favourite memory of swimming in Sydney, beyond all of the great Australian performances, was the Dutch swimmer.
Peter van den Hoogenband.
Which I still reckon would be the best name for a garage band. This Friday at the zoo, it's the Peter van den Hoogen Band.
Trio. What about Michelle de Bruin? Because that was the other one. They were the rock stars from the team, remember?
The Peter van den Hoogen Band
featuring Michelle de Bruin on percussion. That was the Heineken House. Oh, that was a lot of fun in Sydney too. So many stories. Put it right.
So many stories of buildings. How was the Heineken House building?
It was a temporary structure, a large marquee, if you like, which made it incredibly easy to break into when you weren't invited. Which was again me.
Well, seeing as you broke into the the Olympic Stadium on the opening ceremony of the Olympics.
Yes.
I think
the Heineken House.
I think getting into the Heineken House
and the last
marquee.
lap. Then there's the last lap. That's another one. But anyway, that's the other. We won't go into the other members of that board. I think we've had enough committee cluster chat today. But
and I think we should probably ban any chats about committees based on. Look, I haven't listened back to this podcast episode yet, right? But I have been sitting here now for about half an hour.
We're over time.
A bit over half an hour.
4 minutes
over.
And at least 12 minutes of that has been committee cluster chat.
So I would just, I just congratulate the listener for getting this far.
And
it must be very bad traffic. Thank you for sticking with us.
You're obviously stuck on the M1.
Normally I'd ask the listeners to rate the podcast, but...
Give it a miss this week. Just hold your bullets until you like us a bit more. But do subscribe, as Chris said, on Instagram @TowardTheGames, and you can email us. Is that right? We've had that set up?
Yes, towardthegames@gmail.com.
Right, and it's Toward the Games. Is that correct grammar? Like towards the games. Is that?
It's interchangeable, Luttsy.
So it doesn't matter.
It's fine.
But it does for this one because it's.
But it does for this one because towards the games doesn't get us.
It's not us. So Toward the Games.
But get on Instagram. We'll get some of those pictures up.
Yeah. Any feedback about committees, or maybe there's a committee we haven't mentioned yet.
I'm not even going to tell Mum about this episode.
We'll see you next time. Maybe not.